excuse me, just getting all my gear out. Is that better? Okay. I've got a reading here from Proverbs 3, verse 5, and it goes to verse 12. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord, and turn away from evil. I can't see it, that's why I had it up. It's all right, it's just my vision's not that good, that's fine. I'll read that again, verse 7. Be not wise in your own eyes, fear the Lord, and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. Honour the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. For the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he loves. That's a great word, isn't it? Doesn't mean just men either, it means women as well. And I ask you a question, are you trusting him with your whole heart? Often we make decisions to do something and don't seek the Lord's will first. But verse 6 tells us, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. He will direct your paths. So which road are you travelling on? I can remember a song which Mark's going to play for me. I met Jesus at the crossroads where the two ways meet. Do you remember that song? You might have learned it when you were kids at Sunday school. Thanks, Mark.
I met Jesus at the crossroads where the two ways meet. Satan too was standing there, and he said, "Come this way. Lots of presents I will give to you today." But I said, "No, there's Jesus here. Let's see what he offers me. Now come my sins forgiven. There's a home in heaven. Praise God, that's the way for me."
Do you want to join in?
Praise God, that's the way for me.
Okay, I thought you might remember that. I can recall the first time I saw the picture of Jesus standing at the crossroads, inviting me to go with him along the narrow road. And I've tried to stay on this, with him leading me. And I think that was something I first came across when my parents were actually missionaries working amongst Aboriginal people in a children's home. And we had the actual picture of Jesus standing there at the crossroads. And I thought, yeah, I need to go that road, on that narrow road. And that's why I pray that each one of you are walking on that narrow road. Another song I really love is Trust and Obey. And I think Mark's got that one too. If you know it, sing with it.
When we walk with the Lord in the light of his word, what a glory he sheds on our way. While we do his good will, he abides with us still, and with all who will trust and obey.
That's terrific, isn't it? We trust and obey. And I guess that's one of the thoughts. Lots of people say they trust him, but do they obey him? In verse 6 of Proverbs 3, it said, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct or make straight your path. Let's look at how the Lord guides us if we stop and ask him. I can experience a lot of those things in my life and have done so and continue to do so. And many times when seeking God's will and what we should do, the Lord has shown us the way he wants us to go. For example, when Laurie and I were travelling Australia, we both felt that we wanted to work amongst the Aboriginal folk, and we tried to work in Alice Springs, but it suggested go to Darwin. So we were on our way up to Darwin. We went to church there on Sunday, were welcomed, and they said, I'll call in at the office on Monday. Interesting, you may have heard me say this before. The nurse who had been working on Goulburn Island was at the office and explained what she did, and her folk were praying for a married couple to come. We were in answer to prayer. And actually when we ended up being on Goulburn Island, we were told then when we went to a meeting, we were praying a married couple would come, and with kids, if possible. And of course we had our 2 children, didn't we? 6 and an 8-year-old. So they went to the local school with the Aboriginal people. And how were we going to get to Goulburn Island? We didn't have much money, and God had it in hand though. We travelled through Arnhem Land, which was what Laurie and I wanted to do, because we wanted to take photographs going all through the Arnhem Land country, and you couldn't get in there without a permit. Because we were going to work on Goulburn Island, we handed a permit. We could drive through Arnhem Land. Fantastic. God knows what we want. And sometimes he knows what will benefit us too. And it was a real adventure. When we got to Owen Pelly, we were told we had to go across a river, which is the East Alligator River. Alligators, crocodiles, whatever, just don't get off the boat. But it wasn't a boat, it was a raft, which consisted of 44-gallon drums lashed together with ropes and 2 planks to drive the forward drive up on. And an outboard motor was propelling it. It was quite an adventure. We went on the raft with the vehicle and our gear, and the boys and I decided we'd actually go in the little boat that they had. But we first had to cross the river before we could get to the ocean to get to the boat. So we went across that river, and the boy said, Mum, look at that crocodile over there. I said, well, you just stay put where you are on the raft and don't get off anything. So we went across, and we then ended up actually going into the Uniting Church unit that they had built for people who came across to help. So we had a really lovely flat that we had the use of. And God's hand of protection was really on us, because the next week they said, well, actually, we want you to go back to Darwin now, but you can go back by a plane, and we want you to train as a practitioner nurse and a lay preacher. And so, fine, okay, say goodbye to Laurie and the kids, hop on a plane, fly across to Darwin. I don't know anyone in Darwin, but we had our caravan at the AADS, which is the Aboriginal Advisory Development Council site, and they said, whenever you come to Darwin, you can just stay in your caravan. So that's fine. I stayed in the caravan, and I ended up doing all the training and then got sent back. And I no sooner had arrived back that someone came rushing up to me, quick, quick, you're wanted. Little boy's been mauled by a dog. Now, God knew we were going to go to a place like that, and I think, yeah, so I trained at the Royal Adelaide Hospital as a nurse, and one of the doctors I was working with, he actually had poor vision, so he taught me how to do suturing. So isn't God good? He had it all prepared beforehand. I knew how to suture, so it wasn't a problem. Another time, I had an Aboriginal man come and they'd had a fight, and he'd been hit across the scalp and it split it right open. They didn't use a spear, they used a star picket. So you can imagine it was quite jagged. And I was a little bit concerned about that, but I thought, oh well, would you like an injection to help relieve the pain that you might get as I'm putting the stitches in? He goes, no. He was so under the influence of alcohol, he didn't need anything for pain relief. The alcohol worked. Anyway, I sutured him all up. His brain was not exposed, thankfully. But I had a powder that I carried with me, an antibiotic powder. I just sprinkled antibiotic powder on it, sloshed it all out again, sprinkled more powder on the outside, closed it all up. He went off, back to work, never had a problem. God's good. And my parents were wonderful because they kept us in prayer and continually sent tape recordings to us with messages, as contact was very difficult during the wet season. We only had a radio telephone. So if I ever wanted help from aerial medical people or a doctor's advice, I had to contact by radio telephone. But it couldn't get through to Darwin, so it went through to Alice Springs, and then they transferred the message to Darwin, and then Darwin put the message back to Alice Springs sent it back to me. So after a lot of talking backwards and forwards, we got results, and we had a doctor that would come once every 3 months, and he would see anyone that I had put especially needed to see a doctor. So that worked out very good. And while we're there, do you remember the 40-hour famine? How everyone used to raise money for that? Well, they decided that instead of doing a 40-hour famine, we would walk around the island. So it called Walk Around the Isle-a-thon. Would someone's people, maybe Aboriginal people too, would they sponsor us? Laurie and the children did the walk, and I was working, of course, so I would meet them every night. I would take down the food that they needed. We'd light a fire on the beach, and my youngest son said to me, Mum, I'd like baked beans for dinner. And so I brought down a tin of baked beans, but silly me, totally forgot to put a hole in the tin. So when it was heated, what happened? There was a big explosion, and the beans went off everywhere, and we found one bean, and the Aboriginal people were camped down on the beach, and they just said they called us Ballender. They called stupid Ballender. And they caught huge amount of crabs. So they brought us crabs for dinner that night, which was much better than baked beans on toast. But I just think it's so wonderful that God actually brought us to that wonderful place and gave us opportunity to share the gospel. Laurie was quite good at sketching, so I was often asked to take the message in church, and Laurie would do a sketch on a whiteboard, and we did one of, I don't know if you've read The Pilgrim's Progress, but you remember when Christian got to the cross, his bundle was on his back and it rolled to the foot of the cross, and he was free of his bundle and burden of sin. And I think, well, that was an opportunity to share how the Lord takes all of your burdens away from you if you give them to Him. If you've given your life to Christ, accepted Christ as your Saviour and Lord, He will be there to help you. I know lots of people say, oh, but I pray, but I don't get answers. But don't forget, sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes it's yes. Sometimes it's wait a while. It's according to God's will, not ours. And I think people often forget that. How many times have you prayed about something, but it's really been more of a self-centered prayer than one that is what the Lord may want you to do? And I guess that's what I see as important, that we ask the Lord for everything that we need. He will supply your needs. And I think of the times when I was in Golden Island and how that we just didn't know where the next lot of food would be coming from. And then the boat would come in from Darwin and it would arrive with food on board. The children used to love it when they came because the captain on board would always freeze beautiful oranges in his freezer. And the kids said, "We got orange ice blocks, Mum." And they could suck all the ice out of the oranges. And we had a tiny little garden. It wasn't very well watered, and it sort of only grew limes and things that I didn't really like very much. But the limes were marvellous because they gave us that wonderful lime juice to use in our water, which made it taste a lot better. When we came back after being up there for over a year working there, we were living on the Gold Coast, and I opened the Sunday Mail, and I was just flicking through, and I said to Laurie, "Oh, look at this, they're wanting a matron at the retirement village in Boonah. What do you reckon?" And he, at that time, was saying, that could be quite an interesting place to move to, because he was doing an outdoor education thing where he had to drop food and supplies off for people who were walking right through the scenic rim, and Boonah would be a good depot. So I applied for the job, and it was really interesting because Ron Warwick was in charge at that time, and I was still working on the Gold Coast. So he said, "I've got quite a lot of people who are far more qualified than you are, and they will be seeing me and I'll be interviewing them, but I'll let you know before 5 o'clock today." So he saw those people, and then 5 o'clock, I finished work on the Gold Coast at 5 o'clock. At 2 minutes to 5, I got a phone call from Ron. He's saying, "Are you still interested in that job? Because it's yours if you want it." I think, wow, God knew exactly where he wanted us. Often we don't know where we're going or what we're going to do, but God does. And so God brought us here in 1992. So I think I'm almost a local. Is that right? I was told 30 years at least. Okay. Anyway, Laurie became a bus driver, and in the spare time, he actually refurbished the Church of Christ manse that we bought. So if you're wondering why there isn't a manse for the minister when he comes here, that's why, because we bought it. And that was so that this could be built. And it's just fantastic, isn't it, to know God is really good and we can praise his name together. I'm very short on my messages because I believe that you can hear a message, you can take it in 10 to 20 minutes at the most. After that, you're lost. Okay, so I hope you're not lost this morning, but I've got a really lovely song. I think you know it, so how would you like to all sing God is so good?